I get everybody's attention? Can you hear me? Welcome, welcome. This is amazing. I don't think we've had this many people in here, at least for a long, long time. So thank you all for turning out so we can get your input on this new adventure that's been proposed to the state parks for the golf course. I think this is a good, looks good. We should build our pavilion that we've been talking about. So maybe we can hold a few more people if we get turnouts like this. It's wonderful to see. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I'd just like to welcome everyone, and I'm going to turn this over to Laura so we can get started and try to get through this. So thank you again for coming.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I do not have a pointer, so I'm going to have Nick advance some slides for me as I talk. Tonight, thank you for coming. State Parks has invited you all here because we are in the preliminary stages of trying to determine if this golf course proposal is something that we should be looking at seriously and moving forward with. So we wanted to come out to the community and get your sentiments on it, how you're feeling about it, and give you an opportunity to weigh in. We are partnering with the city on this effort, and so we welcome you tonight, so thank you for joining us. So today's agenda, we had a sign-in at the back, and I apologize, I didn't have enough sign-in sheets. I didn't realize that the attendance would be so wonderful. So I appreciate this is obviously a proposal that has a lot of interest in your community, so thank you for being here. What we'll go through tonight is we'll do some introductions. I'm going to be up here to give you a little bit of background about the park itself. Talk about the recreation concession areas and how that's kind of developed over the years, our program at state parks. And then we'll talk a little bit about the partnership with the city and the opportunity for a master plan of this park. So, and then what we'll do is have Westport Golf talk about their proposal with you this evening, about their concept, and cover that information for you. And the way we're going to collect feedback this evening, there's so many people in the room, we're going to do what's called a sticky note process, and I will talk to you about what that entails a little bit later on. But what I would ask of you this evening is that we hold questions until the end. We'll do a brief, State Parks will do a brief presentation, we'll let Westport Golf do their presentation, and then we're going to move right into what's called a sticky note process, and you'll have an opportunity to write down all of your questions, comments, concerns, and we'll then go through and read all of those so we can all hear what everybody in the room has to say. It might take a little while. I'm sure we all have some thoughts that we'll want to share. And then at the very end, we'll do question and answer. There'll be opportunity to engage. And even when we're doing the sticky note process, when you're writing your thoughts down and putting them up on the wall, we'll be here to answer questions and have some conversation during that time as well. So, saying that, go ahead. The objective of the evening is that hopefully you guys get a little bit of background information about the park. You have a better idea of our recreation concession area program, and that you understand the concept and vision that Westport Golf here, that Westport Golf is presenting with you today. And then we want, ultimately, State Parks, the city, and Westport Golf really want to hear from you. So before we go too far further, I want to make sure that we get introductions in, and we can start with elected officials. First of all, I apologize, I failed to introduce myself. I'm Laura Moxham. I'm a parks planner here in Olympia. I am going to be facilitating this process. I'm the lead on this project. So with that, I would invite elected officials in the room to introduce themselves. Oh, you all know.
Oh, Mayor Beard.
Randy Ross, Grace Harbor County Commissioner.
Oh, you need it louder.
I'm Tom Quaid, Board of
Tom Quigg, thank you.
Catherine Francis, City Council.
Hi, hi, Catherine. Thank you for joining us.
Parnell, Westport City Council.
Thank you for joining us. We can just, okay. And what I will do is have city. Can everybody hear me in the back? Okay. Can we turn this up, John? Testing, testing. Can you hear me now? Do you want it louder? Good. Louder, please. Louder, louder. Hello, testing. Hello, can you hear me now? All right, I'm seeing some nods in the back. Okay, so we are really packed in here, so we're just going to do the best that we can, given our constraints. So what we'll do is I'm going to go ahead and have city staff and state park staff in the room introduce themselves real quick before we move on. I'm going to start here with Ryan.
Hi, Ryan Day with Westport Golf LLC.
Can you guys stand so we can see you?
Actually, I get that a lot. Ryan Day with Westport Golf LLC.
David Kidd with DMK Golf Design.
Craig Hunter, Westport Golf LLC.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jessica Logan. I'm the Environmental Program Manager at State Parks. Okay. Sophia Denenberg. I'm a State Parks Commissioner.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Goodrich, Public Works Director for the City of Westport.
Hey, wait, you passed Nick.
Oh, Nick, sorry.
I'm Nick Shawn, DMK Golf Design.
I'm Linda Kunze with State Parks, a steward.
I'm Michael Hankinson, I'm a planner with State Parks.
I'm Peter Herzog, Assistant Director with State Parks.
I'm Steve Milner, I'm a Washington State Park Commissioner.
Don Hawk, your State Park Director.
Where did Miles go?
Way in the back.
So Miles Wenzel, our area manager, is in the back representing.
He's probably a familiar face in the area. He welcomed you all in tonight. So, okay. Okay, advance to the next slide. So, where we are, our park is located in the city of Westport, west of Aberdeen, south of Ocean Shores. Next slide. And we've got this is an aerial of the park. As you can see across the room, we have several aerials posted. This is, obviously you can see from the park, it's easily accessed into the city and the marina area, and there's Half Moon Bay. I wish I had a pointer. So, next. Yeah, so a little bit about the park history. We used to have two parks, West Haven and Westport Light. West Haven was acquired through a donation from Grace Harbor back in 1968. And that was 79 acres that we acquired this park. In Westport Light, we actually accepted a donation from the Bureau of Recreation in 1973. And that was 212 acres. And you can see the dune trail that goes along and connects both of the parks. So for a couple of decades, we have been interested in, State Parks has been interested in acquiring the property to connect the two parks. And next slide. In 2014, we had an opportunity. We applied for a grant to acquire this property, and we were awarded the grant in the Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program. It was a $1.9 million grant, and we acquired the property at the end of 2015, which we then now have a connected park with a total of over 600 acres, collectively known as Westport Light State Park. Next slide. So before I go on too far, I know that John Shaw and Julie Smith have been working with State Parks to develop a friends group and organize a friends group here at Westport Light State Park. We do have several friends groups that we have formal agreements with across the state. We have about 20 agreements, and friends groups are nonprofit organizations, and they are actively involved at our state parks. They may hold events. They'll actively engage with the community on behalf of the state park, as well as we have friends groups that help us when we go to apply for grant funds, whether it's development or acquisition. So if you're interested, there is a sign-up sheet somewhere at the back on the sign-in table, and go ahead and sign up if you're interested in being part of the friends group. Or you can talk to John Shaw. John, you want to wave? So I just wanted to throw that out there. That's an opportunity that if you're interested, you can take advantage of. Next slide. So Westport Light State Park is over 600 acres. It's primarily undeveloped. We do have a parking lot up at the north, actually both ends, the north and south end. We have parking lots and bathrooms, but primarily it is undeveloped parkland with the dune trail that's about 1.3 miles. That's ADA accessible, that runs north and south along the beach side of the property. Next slide. So we're going to move into the recreation concession areas, and this really was the idea of public-private partnerships really started when we started to have a push that we needed to sustain our own park system financially. And so one of the ideas in the transformation strategy was to look into establishing public-private partnerships. So in 2013, when our commission adopted the transformation strategy, that was one of the considerations and priorities within that strategy. And so in 2014, we did hire a consultant to do an assessment statewide on all of our state park lands and state park properties. And that assessment really took a look at those lands that were underutilized, that may be good candidates for this type of recreation concession area activity to occur. And when I say recreation concession area, it is in a public-private partnership. It does not mean that State Parks is intending to privatize the park system. What that means is that a private developer could come in and develop amenities that our visitors are interested in that State Parks would otherwise not be able to afford, or we don't have the expertise. So it does not mean, though, that when that happens, we don't actually hand over our state park lands to private developers. State Parks maintains ownership of that. So I just wanted to be clear up front. It's not a transfer of ownership with this type of business activity. So in 2015, we did some real estate policy updates to allow for this activity on our park lands. Next. In 2016, our commission did approve 4 sites. We did public process prior to that to distill it down to these 4 parks. Westport Light being one of them, and Fort Flagler, Squilchuck, and Miller, Sylvania being the other 3. Next slide. So prior to the commission taking action and identifying those 4 parks as parks that are suitable for this recreation concession area activity. We came out to Westport and we presented the concept of this idea in March of 2016 to the community, at which time there was a few concerns that were expressed regarding competing with local businesses and potential wetland impacts. But in general, the community supported the economic development. So as you can see on this visual is showing the commission approved area for the recreation concession area, and that's 34 acres. When we presented this information, we did not have any idea of what a private developer would propose. So the idea was that maybe they'd come in and talk about RV campgrounds, cottages, or restaurants, or a combination thereof. But we really didn't have any concept of what a developer would be interested in doing at Westport Light State Park. So it was just a general idea. It does not mean, though, that you're going to get a golf course in this 34 acres. So I just wanted to highlight that. The 34 acres is meant for a higher level of intensity of use. So for cabins or bathrooms, something along, or lodges, those types of things would be allowed in that area. Next.
Which area?
I'm sorry. It's highlighted in the red. It's that pink area.
Okay.
I apologize. I don't have a pointer that works. There you go. Nick is helping me out. Thank you, Nick. So as we continued with the recreation concession area momentum, we did go out for requests for qualifications in August of 2017. We received a couple of bids. They were both non-responsive. Basically, they didn't submit all of the required materials, so we could not accept them. We then revised and re-advertised, and we did receive a couple of responsive bids, one of which was the city. I mean, the city has been engaged throughout this process. They are very interested in seeing something happen out at Westport Light, and they let us know that they didn't want to be the developer, but they were certainly willing to work with someone if there was some interest. We did have one company that we have been working with and having conversations with over this last year, and they did submit interest at all 4 of the parks. However, that has really hasn't gone anywhere. So at the time that the communications started to drop with that developer, we then heard from Westport Golf with their idea and concept. So that's where we are today. And in our public meeting, March of 2016, we said that we would come back out to the community, and once we have a proposal idea, we would come and talk to you about that. And so that's why we're here today, to have this conversation. Next. So really, when we're taking a look at a site, I have to say, I love Westport. I recreate here all the time. So personally, it's one of my favorite places to come. I love clamming. But when you're taking a look at a site that's 600 acres, over 600 acres, we really need to we have to take a look holistically at this site. What does this park want to be when it grows up? What should be in the park? How can we provide public access and protect natural and cultural resources? So all of these things need to be considered. So State Parks is presented with a little bit of an opportunity here with this proposal to be thinking about that, to be looking at this site on how we can incorporate other amenities that visitors want to see, whether it be trails, whether it be additional camping opportunities on the coast, interpretive opportunities. Next. You've got all sorts of opportunities and recreation interests that bring people out to Westport. We all know them: crabbing, fishing, bird watching, beach combing. I mean, you name it. You can come out here and enjoy yourself, and it's peaceful. And and then in addition to that, we have rich history out here. The lighthouse. We have tribal history that we should be thinking about how we can incorporate that into the site. And realistically, we can do that through a master planning process, which involves a lot of community input and public process. With this proposal comes that opportunity that we could move forward with a master plan. So next. So the city and state parks has entered into a memorandum of agreement to utilize their city property, which is highlighted in the red, and it's about 37 acres, and the city has agreed to allow state parks to consider that in a master planning process. So that's significant for a couple of different reasons. When state parks acquires lands, there's often deed restrictions that are associated with those lands. So utilizing and considering other properties that don't have deed restrictions could be pretty significant and a benefit to the park. Next. So before, I just want to go over the sticky note process real quick. And I think at this point, staff in the room could hand out sticky notes to folks because we have so many people in the room. And we really want to hear from each and every one of you. And one of the best ways that we have found to do that is to have you write down your thoughts and questions, concerns, ideas, and then you can see across the room there are sheets of paper. Maybe it's a recreational topic that you want to talk about. You write that down and put it there. But I thought it would be helpful while Westport Golf is talking to you that you could be writing down some of those questions, because we're going to limit questions. If there's process-related questions, I'm happy to address those. However, let's wait for questions until the end so that everybody has an opportunity to write down. A lot of times questions will be answered in the sticky note process itself. So, staff, can you help hand out sticky notes to everyone? And are there any process-related questions? So, we're going to hand out sticky notes and pencils, and so as Westport Golf talks to you about their idea and their concept, if you have questions, you can, or concerns, or any comments that you have that you want documented, and we're going to read those comments back at the end. So after their presentation, we're going to have more time, probably about a half an hour, for you to keep writing comments and your ideas and put those on the paper and have conversations with staff in the room, and then we'll reconvene and staff will read through all of the comments.
Due to the size, you probably won't get to everybody. Are you planning for any additional meetings?
That is an excellent question. The question was, due to the size and the number of people that are in the meeting, is there going to be an opportunity for another meeting? We did talk about that, and I would say very likely. answer questions. Yeah, no, we can do that. No, the presentation's not gonna be long. It's not gonna be long.
note paper, anyone?
So I think that,
One note paper?
we'll probably have
Oh,
all the
yeah,
other
just put
people.
them up on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
One more note paper? You have enough?
Yeah, and we'll reserve those, we've done it.
Does anyone else need stickers?
So, are you ready to write down? Oh, you I'm done. I think that next steps. Yeah, I'm done.
Back up.
Okay.
Does anyone need
Hey, Michael. Okay.
So once you fill out our little paper,
Yes.
obviously you don't want everybody to get up. So you can ask them over.
Yeah, that's a good, yes. Yes, that's, so the question was, since there's so many people in the room, rather than everybody getting up, just pass your comments to the center and staff can pick them up and then we can meander towards the back and collect them from you. Excellent idea, RD. Thank you. Do you need a pencil? Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind, please put your category of whether it's recreation-based, environmental, or other at the top of your comments. If you need more stickies, we have a ton. So you're not limited. All right, raise your hand if you need some paper and a pencil. Anyone? Anyone? Okay, we got over here too. Over here. Okay, so with that, I'm gonna. It looks like everybody is ready. Anybody else need paper and pencil? Okay, if you need more, just raise your hand and one of us will come see you. Otherwise, I'm gonna hand this over to Ryan and he can have a conversation with you folks.
Well, first off, can everybody hear me in the back? Great. All right, thank you. First off, this is overwhelming. I don't think any of us had any idea when we started talking about this about a year ago that we'd have a room packed full of people, and I'm appreciative of your engagement and willingness to help inform us on this decision. I'm going to start off by, I'm going to reintroduce myself as Ryan. Okay. I'll try and talk louder without screaming at you. I'm Ryan Day with Westport Golf. I'm here with my good friend and PGA professional Craig Hunter. We've been talking about this for the better part of 2 years now. We're lucky to be engaged with on this project with DMK Golf Design, which some of you may know from locations such as Bandon Dunes and Gamble Sands locally. David McClay Kidd, the principal, and Nick Sean, the senior partner. I do have to say I'm excited about this because I took my kids out of school today to show them what a true civics lesson would look like and democracy in action. So this is a monumental experience for all of us. I'm going to start with how we got here and how this concept came about. I'm a Pacific Northwest native, born and raised in the Pacific Northwest. I have 4 children, and we have been vacationing in Westport for the better part of the last 10 years. My wife is really big on traditions, and coming to Westport during the summer for beach time is one of them. We used to come annually for New Year's Eve and hang out at the Viking Bowl on New Year's Eve, which was one of our traditions, and we were so sad to see that go away. Maybe if we're lucky, we can see that rise from the ashes. And although it may not be abundantly clear, I am an avid runner. And when we vacation here, I've often run up and down the boardwalk at Westport Light State Park. And every time I look to the east, I look at that park and the land, and it's reminiscent of some of these fantastic golf courses that I've had the pleasure and opportunity to play over in Scotland and Ireland. And it took root, and it was a concept and thought that I just couldn't get out of my head. I was telling David earlier, I couldn't get it out of my head. And through a series of events, I got the opportunity to meet David, who's world-renowned for building these links golf courses that embrace natural terrain and are environmentally friendly approaches to building golf courses, and had a brief conversation. And he said he'd be willing to come out and take a look at it if we could get anywhere with this. So that kind of takes us where we are today. And actually, I'm going to jump back. I'm going to let David explain, because, well, I'm lucky to be around 2 Scotsmen, but I'm going to let David explain what a links experience is, an authentic links experience, and how a links golf course ties into the community in the true Scottish sense of a community gathering place, and the concept that we have that will hopefully take root in Westport. But so having this great idea, where do we go from there? And we went to the State Parks Department, and we're lucky enough to get a meeting and sit down with 12 or 13 representatives from the Parks Department for about 2 or 3 hours while they tried to talk us out of this idea. And they clearly saw that we were crazy for golf and we're not going to take no for an answer, and agreed to start talking and engaging in dialogue. And what we found out was we had desires and the parks had needs. And we were also fortunate to have representation from the city of Westport engaging in the discussion of needs and wants as well. And the opportunity of a golf course to provide an economic engine to do many of the items that the Parks Department wants to do, from master planning to improving access to the park, campgrounds, campsites, nature trails, perhaps some other concession opportunities, all of a sudden transformed this idea from building a golf course to something I didn't envision. And it really becoming enmeshed in the community and allowing the community and the environment to design and develop something that could be truly special. And as we start going through the economics of building this and what we can do if we are able to, and if the site allows it and the environment allows it, what we see is a green project that's environmentally friendly and using environmental process to drive our decision making, that could potentially have an annual impact of up to $30 million a year for Westport and the Grace Harbor community in general. And it's tremendously exciting to be able to be a part of some of that decision making. But as we look around, all of our decision making and design, that's why you're not seeing pictures of a proposed golf course is we're letting the input and the needs of the Parks Department and the city of Westport help drive those decisions. I've been asked to, because clearly there was a project 10, 12 years ago to build a golf course. So one of my jobs is to try and distinguish what we're doing from what was attempted and failed. And the difference is we're working with the Parks Department, we're working with the city of Westport, we're letting the environment drive the design and decision making. We don't have a concrete plan. That's why you're not seeing, this isn't a real estate deal. We are building a golf course and in order to support the park and support the city of Westport, not the other way around. We're not going to build a golf course in order to sell lots. That's not our intention. So there's the concept. And like I said, I don't have slides of the vision because we just don't know, we don't have all the information yet. And we're looking forward to tonight to get much of those questions and information to help drive our decision making. So with that, I'm going to let David take over, and he will help describe what a Lynx experience is, and enjoy it.
Okay. Well, if I shout, I know you can hear me, but I'm still not sure if you'll understand me. So I'm told that we're being recorded, and I expect that there'll be subtitles at the bottom when it's posted on the internet for my strange accent. So sorry about that. I've been here for quite a long time. I came to Oregon in '91. So what's that? 20, almost 30, coming up on 30 years ago. I was fresh out of college as a Scotsman, and I fell in love with the Pacific Northwest, and I moved here. I became an American citizen a few years ago. My children are American, and I love it here. So I may not be a third generation American. I am a true immigrant, and I came here and I love it, and I'm sure I'll die here, although I was born in Scotland. As Ryan said, there is no plan. At least not yet. There's lots of enthusiastic ideas, but no plan. And what I've been asked to do is paint you the image of what the beginnings of a plan might look like, and what would steer that decision making. I'm not quite sure where these various pictures are from that Nick's put up there. That looks like Ireland somewhere. Royal Portrush. That's pretty good, where the British Open was held this year. I want to take you back to 1994. I was 26 years old, and I was invited to come out to Oregon to look at what is now Bandon Dunes. And a guy from Chicago called Mike Kaiser invited me out. And I'd only been to the States maybe once or twice before. I'd seen a few golf courses, but not many. And I came out and I looked at the piece of land, and I hadn't met him yet. And I spent a week wandering around this beautiful piece of lynx land, the soft dunes that run along the southern Oregon coast. And I could see perfectly clearly that it was the sort of land that the courses of the British Isles would have started on. That one's Royal County Down, I knew that one. Those are the Mountains of Mourne in Northern Ireland. And when I got to meet Mike, I said to him, the chances are you're not going to build a golf course that I would recognize. And he looked at me and he said, well, why not? And I said, well, every golf course that I see in America is not the sort of golf course you would see in the British Isles, for a number of reasons. The most obvious one to the eye is that Americans don't walk when they play golf. It's a strange concept. The Scots invented the game because they wanted to go out and have a brisk walk in the countryside. And Americans invented golf carts, and that's what they did right away. And it's amazing to me that they call it exercise at all. There's no exercise in driving an electric golf cart. There's no exercise in that. And when you look at the British Isles and the golf courses that exist, they're often, another thing that I tell American golfers is here, golf is a sport. I know you're all thinking I'm crazy, but this is a real point, I believe, to the core of my soul. In America, golf is a sport. In Scotland, in the British Isles, golf is a social pastime. It's the same as walking the trail. It's the same as walking along a river. I mean, it's an excuse to go enjoy the great outdoors, to be at one with your friends and nature. Very often in Scotland, St Andrews, that I'm sure even all the non-golfers have heard of in here, did you know that St Andrews is a state park? It's not officially a golf course.
I did not know that.
St Andrews, all of the golf courses at St Andrews are a city park. And you cannot play golf on the old course on a Sunday. It is exclusively for the use of the townsfolk. So if you go to St Andrews on a Sunday, you will see people picnicking in the middle of the 18th fairway. Ryan probably doesn't want me saying that, but that's true. And so you can walk your dog and have a picnic, and the grounds are on the edge of the city of St Andrews, and it's a state park, and they play golf through it. But you can recreate in all sorts of other ways through it, as long as you're willing to take the chance of getting hit by a golf ball. There's plenty of signs that say, you know, beware. The essence of golf where I'm from is about exploring a beautiful landscape, with golf being the excuse for that exploration. It's about being out there with your friends and seeing nature close up. It's not about driving golf carts on concrete paths. It's not about lots of blue lakes with fountains in and ornamental plantings. It's about the golf course being at one with the nature that it finds itself in, as you can see. And so I told, going back to Mike Kaiser in 1994, he'd flown in his private jet with his group of Chicago buddies, and Mike is a pretty sophisticated golfer. He played all these courses that we're seeing pictures of, and he shook his head and kind of laughed when I talked about golf carts. But I didn't stop there. I said, you know, the next thing I would do, so I wouldn't have this clubhouse on the beach. I mean, why would I put it on the beach? If someone is able to drive right to the beach, they're not going to go out and play golf, especially if they're having to walk. They're just going to go right to the bar and sit and look at the beach from there. The whole reason for being out here is to enjoy the nature, to explore it. So the clubhouse shouldn't be out there. It should be set back from it, and the golf course should explore the landscape. And the golf course doesn't want to be built. That's something that I hear Ryan saying all the time. Building a golf course is not something I want to do. I want to discover a golf course. I want to lay out a golf course. I don't want to build a golf course. I want it to look like I was never here. I want people to say, well, that guy doesn't deserve any credit at all because he didn't do very much. Well, that would be the best compliment of all. I didn't do very much. We found a way to wind the golf course through it. So, you know, making people walk, bringing the clubhouse back inland. There's no golf carts, there's no cart paths. There's no non-indigenous plants at Bandon. In fact, quite the opposite. At Bandon, we've discovered a lot of non-native invasives that had come into the land that were they were choking out all of the natives. They were creating a giant fire hazard. And so there was the impetus to fix all of those things using the golf course to do so. So the golf course's mandate, and this is what I told Mike, was to find the habitats that this land wants to be, and then introduce them, make sure that those are the habitats that thrive. And on the Oregon coast, on that part, before we all arrived, that would have been fescue meadows, would have been shore pines. It wouldn't have been covered in gorse and whin. And so that's what the golf course went back to. We never planted modern day grasses. We went back to grasses that hadn't been used in 100 years in the US. We planted fescue, which is the native grass that would grow on the coastline. And when you play golf at Bandon, that's what you're playing on. Every single piece of it is the same fescue grass over everything. It requires almost no inputs, no fertilizers, no pesticides, very little water. It wants to grow in that location. It's extremely drought tolerant. If you look at some of the pictures that Nick's showing, the golf courses to an unsophisticated American golfer, some of these pictures look like the golf course is dead. But it's not. The golf courses don't have very much irrigation. Some of them have none. And so when the summer dries it out, the golf course, the fescue grass goes dormant. So that was all part of my explanation to Mike. Another project we worked on, and I'm trying to find common threads with what I see here at Westport. I worked on another project that was very close to my heart called McCausland Dunes. And that was a place that I'd gone to as a child. My great-grandparents had gone there before World War II, and then my grandparents and my parents. And so when I was a baby, I was taken to this beach out on the west coast of Scotland, very like Westport. The town had about 1,200 people in it, and originally it had been a fishing port, but it had gone into serious decline. There was a small local golf course that people loved, and next to it there was another stretch of beach, about a couple of miles of beach. But the whole area was in economic decline. My career took off. I was able to do Band and Dunes. I was able to do a number of other projects that were very successful. And I kept going back to this location. And I could see that this beautiful stretch of coastline, if there were a way to create a world-class golf course, a true links golf course that would attract tourists and locals alike to want to play and enjoy it, it would create a ground zero for the economic regrowth, the pride of their place for the local community, if I could do it. So I went to the Scottish Natural Heritage, who would be the, I don't know what the equivalent in this part of the world would be, the EPA by Scottish standards. And they said, you are crazy. There is no way. This piece of land is so precious that there are orchids growing here that don't grow anywhere else in Europe. They are so precious. And I said, well, I hear that, and if this isn't possible, then it's not possible. However, when I go out and I wander through this land, it's used as winter grazing for the local farmer. And he doesn't know about the orchids. He's dumping pieces of equipment, he's got all his cattle in there grazing it. This land is in decline. It may be incredibly precious, but its slow trajectory is downwards, not upwards. The community have no use, they are not getting any benefit out of it, and the environmental value of it is slowly diminishing. That there's an inevitability to that trajectory. What could be done to help that? Is there any way we